Here's the question I'd like to pose to you guys just for a check-in. What's the last thing that you did in your business where you thought to yourself, man, somebody else should be doing this? Like, this is busy work. I don't have the time for this. Or alternately, Ernest, what's the last thing that you didn't do that you know you should have done, but you just didn't have the time to do it? Like, what are some of those things that right now are sitting around on a to-do list or something, and every time you look at it, you go, man, I know that needs to get done, but I don't have the time for that. Like, what are some of those things, Jack, Howard, Grant, you guys? Like, I'm curious what you know you should be doing, or maybe things you've done where as you were doing them, you thought to yourself, man, I should have somebody else doing this for me. Like, I need leverage, which is really what we're here to talk about today. Delivered, Ernest. Yeah, for sure. Ernest says, I need somebody to post in videos, deliver in gifts, cold calling expireds and FISBOs, man, social media. Angela says, I know I need to be getting on this thing. I just don't have the time, right? I spend my days working with buyers and sellers and kind of running the business of real estate. I work in my business. All right, social media posts is a big one. So again, I just have you guys kind of give me a little bit of feedback here. So first off, I know you're listening. Second, I know as we're going through here and you have a question to ask, you know where to go and ask it in that chat. Lead follow-up, Lauren, high five. Yeah, there's, especially we have a consistent flow of leads coming into our business. Sometimes we're out with clients when those leads come in. So today we're going to talk about basically some of the things that a virtual assistant could do. Follow up consistently. Postcards, Christina, absolutely. Some of the things that a Brivity virtual assistant, or just a virtual assistant in general, doesn't have to be from Brivity, could do in your business. Linda says social media, producing and sending flyers, et cetera, on and on and on. Right, Linda? There's so many things. I mean, you guys have one of the most multifaceted jobs out there, right? Like, you're a counselor sometimes, and the other time you're expected to be like a marketing expert, and other times you're expected to be this kind of administrator that's super organized. And I mean, there's a lot that goes into being a real estate agent. And let's dive in here. This is sponsored by Brivity VA. Okay, so we have a division of Brivity, and you're here today because you're either a client of Brivity or you get marketing messages from us. And today's message kind of struck a chord with you, which is how do I get a little bit of leverage in my world? Now, these are some of the different types of virtual assistants that we offer to real estate agents through Brivity VA. And my friend Bryce will be here in a little bit if we have specific questions about Brivity VA. But let's dive in here for a little bit. And I think this, like the idea of hiring help into your business is really predicated around this concept of how much do you earn per hour? And I don't know personally if you've ever figured this out, but essentially what you do is figure out kind of at the end of the year, what did I take home, right? So let's say I took home, I had a nice year. I took home $150,000 this year. There are about 2,000 working hours in a year. So if you took home $150,000, right, you were worth about $75 an hour. And so this comes from Ben Kinney, the way Ben Kinney kind of built his business. And Ben is the founder and the CEO of Brivity. He's also still a practicing real estate agent with a massive team today, right? And he's built this team over many years, but he's constantly been focused on this idea of how much do I earn per hour? Because next year, if I want to do more than I did this year, I've got just a couple of options of how I do that, right? I could work more hours. And a lot of times, right, that's the cycle we get into as real estate agents. We get more busy, we get more, more business, which is awesome, but ultimately, the way we achieve that is through just working more, right? Spending less time with our friends and our family and our loved ones and working more. And look, some of us love that aspect of the business, right? We can work as much as we want, work more and earn more. But some of us would like to earn more per hour, working the same or maybe even less hours. And there's really only two ways to do that, right? Leverage and efficiency, right? I can get more efficient, get better at the things I'm doing, right? Get more done in the same amount of time, or I can find leverage. And really what we're talking about today is leverage. So what we want to ultimately do in our business is figure out what are the things that I could pay somebody else to do for less than I'm capable of making per hour. And then I could take that time. Let's say that was 2 hours a day, right? 2 hours a day over the course of 20 working days in a month, right? I could claw back like a whole week's worth of time just by offloading 2 hours a day of things I need to get done. And I think the reality is most of us have a lot of things, right? You guys listed a whole bunch of them. We have a bunch of things that we're not even doing, right? Or we're doing them, but we're thinking, man, this is not leading me to the $75 an hour that I'm worth, or some of you guys $150 an hour that I'm worth, right? I'm doing these things that could be done by somebody for $8, $10 an hour. So when we talk about a virtual assistant, we're going to go through a whole bunch of things in here today that we use virtual assistants in Ben Kinney's business. Many Brivity clients are using virtual assistants to do these different aspects of the business. But I mean, we really firmly believe if it can be done on a computer, it can be done by a virtual assistant. We have virtual assistants here, and we're going to show you all the different things that they do in Ben Kinney's business. And he runs a business that in 2020, despite all of the challenges in some of our different markets, we're still going to do over 5,000 transactions. And a lot of that is because of the leverage of how we use virtual assistants or virtual professionals in our business. So one of the first things is managing transactions. And look, coordinating communication, right? Letting people know when certain dates are coming up, coordinating the different vendors and the service providers that are a part of these. So we have one gal who manages the Washington State transaction component of Ben Kinney's business. They will do in Washington State this year about 1,000 transactions. And this gal's name is Olivia. So they have one agent that manages all their pendings, and they've got another agent that manages like their list, or another lady that manages their listings. So between Tessa and Olivia, they will manage all of these active listings, and they will manage all of these pending transactions. It'll end up being about 1,000 transactions. The only staff that we have to do that are those two gals. We see teams all the time that have 3, 4, 5 admins, and they do 250 transactions or 300 transactions, which is amazing, right? That's an amazing business. What we have done is we have structured our business around a couple of kind of in-house employees, and then basically a team of virtual professionals. On the Bellingham operation here, the Washington operation for Ben Kinney's team, we have at any given time 3 or 4 virtual assistants that we can bring in and out as volume ramps up. So in the summertime, some of them more of them might be doing transaction management. In the winter, when things are a little bit slower, we're going to roll them off to some different things, and we'll see some of those different things that we're doing. But because of the way Brivity works, and specifically the way the transaction management aspects of Brivity works, Olivia is managing these virtual assistants basically through transaction auto plans. We have plans set up that basically lay out and detail. And by the way, we share these plans freely with Brivity users. So if you're a current Brivity client, which I know many of you guys are, and you'd be curious to see what a transaction management or a transaction auto plan looks like from the Ben Kinney team, bob@benkinney.com is my email address. If you guys want to email me, I'd love to share one of those plans with you. But inside of those plans are basically all of these different tasks set out for VAs. So there's things like posting the listing on our social media channels, right? We can get marketing these listings online. So we've got virtual assistants that every day are going in and look in our Washington organization, and granted, inventory is ridiculously low in Washington right now, but at any given normal time, we'd probably be carrying somewhere around 50 listings at a minimum. There's times of the year where we're carrying 90 or 100 listings. Right now, man, this market is crazy. Like I think we have 27 listings in Washington right now, right? It's just listings are hard to come by, but our virtual assistants are marketing our listings online. They're putting them on Facebook. They're constantly running them up to Twitter and Craigslist. I know, like, for whatever reason, at some point, lots of real estate agents have kind of abandoned posting their things to Craigslist. We still do it consistently. We still get leads from it consistently. These activities, right? A lot of the marketing of your listings is done through the MLS, right? You put it on the MLS, it goes out to all these places, but we want to make sure all these different places are being hit, and our virtual assistants do that. And Brivity actually gives them kind of a calendar where they go in and they can see, like, okay, at Facebook, it's got to get posted. This particular listing's got to get posted on our Facebook business page again. And we just kind of lay out what the expectation is for them inside of our Brivity plans. And then they just go out and execute against those things. So whatever places you guys might market your listings, or whatever places you probably should be, but you don't have the time right now, virtual assistants can absolutely go out and get that done for you. There's another concept inside of Brivity that's called advertising plans. And inside of a transaction, you can basically, for your seller, let's say I have a listing, for my seller, there's a really easy way in Brivity, and I got to kind of set it up first, but to lay out all of the places that a customer's home might be marketed, right? And the reality is probably 90% of those places are really just, we put it in the MLS and it ends up being pushed out to that place. But one of the things that we want to make sure of in Ben's business is that our clients know that because they're listed with us, their home is marketed in all these places. And look, they may or may not know it's because of the MLS feed. They don't necessarily, most people don't know that, right? But we want to show them that home on Zillow. We want to show them that home on Redfin. We want to show them that home on Realtor.com. We want to show them that home on, some of our local competitors, Windermere and John L. Scott and the Mulhot Group. And then we want to show them the places that we posted it as well, Craigslist and our Facebook page and our Twitter feed and our Instagram and all these different places that we actually market the property, some of which we just put it in the MLS and it ends up getting marketed to or ends up getting syndicated to. We want to make sure they know about that. And so we use these Brivity advertising plans where it's the VA's job basically to go out and just kind of find that location so we can enter it into the transaction plan so it can be communicated back to the client. And the specific reason that Ben built this, many, many years ago as he was building his business, it would occasionally happen that somebody would come to him and they'd say, hey, we haven't sold our house yet. And we're thinking about giving Windermere a try, right? In Western Washington here, Windermere is a competing brokerage that, has a lot of name recognition. They've been a local brokerage here for, over 100 years. And people would come to him and say, hey, we're thinking about listing with Windermere. And what Ben realized is, gosh, he never actually told them or let them know that when they listed with him, their property's been on Windermere's website too, just like it's been on Zillow and Realtor.com and Remax and Keller Williams and Coldwell Banker. It's been all these places, but they never knew. And so when he could actually have a conversation with somebody, he would let them know, hey, listen, when we listed our property, Windermere's had that listing on their website the whole time we have. So every visitor on the internet that ever would have went to Windermere, they saw your property there too. And Windermere hasn't been able to sell your property, even though it's been on their website. So changing, and going to Windermere, it's not going to get you any more exposure than we are already getting you. But we had a realization that, God, people don't know sometimes. Like we sit down at the listing presentation, we tell them, hey, we're going to make sure your property's everywhere, but they don't actually know where it is. So Brivity advertising plans and having a VA to kind of execute against these plans, they allow you to kind of easily communicate back to your clients exactly where their homes are marketed, including like the actual link to that property wherever it might be located, right? On realtor.com, on Zillow, on Redfin, on all these different places. And in your MLS, with agent websites, there's thousands of places that's marketed. What we focus on are about the first 30 results. In any of our given markets, if we were to Google homes for sale in Bellingham, for example, we're going to make sure our client knows that their listing is marketed on the top 30 sites. And then we'll make sure that even if Windermere or John L. Scott or some of our local competitors are not included in that top 30, we'll make sure that our customers know that their property is being marketed everywhere and anywhere that we market it. Linda says, I'm really concerned specifically about the transaction itself. I was an agent in Washington for 10 years, and the forms in California are way more and more complicated. Let's talk about that for a second, because one of the things that Olivia does in Washington, right? And granted, look, we've got an operation, 3 different operations in California, one in Napa, one in Sacramento, and one in Orange County, where we run virtual assistants that help to manage a transaction. But generally let's say, Linda, you're your own agent, right? Or maybe you have an ops person that helps manage your transactions. In either scenario, at the very end of the day, what Olivia's job becomes in our world, and she becomes the person that ultimately signs off on the forms and stuff. So the VAs kind of make sure all that stuff is there and ready, but Olivia's kind of the ultimate checkpoint, right? She's making sure that we're in compliance and the dates are getting met and things like that. But the VAs are actually executing on the things. Now, before a form would ever get sent, or we'd ever, send out a DocuSign to a client or something, absolutely, we're going to get, Linda, your eyes on it, or your director of ops, or the person that manages your transaction, like somebody's eyes that's a license, understands the actual kind of complexities, that you're going to want to get eyes on it. But there's a lot that even just you think about, like, let's say DocuSign, right? Just the process of taking a document and uploading it there and making sure that all the places the client needs to sign are, how much time do you spend doing that when somebody else could do that? And then you just kind of spot check it and go, yep, that's right. And that's kind of how we leverage a virtual assistant in a transaction setting. We are not relying on them to kind of dot every I and cross every T. They're basically lining the I's and the T's up, right? They're kind of saying, hey, we think these are all crossed, but Olivia, Linda, you, at the end of the day, somebody who is ultimately responsible for that is going to put their eyes on it and just make sure things line out. So let's keep moving on here. So when we have a listing, our virtual assistants are creating a lot of the listing collateral for our agents to leverage and use. So that's things like flyers if we're doing an open house, right? A lot of it is the different things an agent can go out and post, right? So we're gonna post if we have a new listing on the Ben Kinney Facebook page or whatever, but that agent themselves and potentially even their clients might want to post about their house in different places. And so we have a tool called Brivity Designer. And the virtual assistants, if you have a Brivity VA, they get trained in all of the different tools of Brivity. So some of you guys are Brivity customers and you've never even poked into Brivity Designer, our design tool that you get as part of the Brivity platform. Your Brivity VAs are trained on using Brivity Designer, so they can get in there and create collateral for you, like flyers, different things that you might post around on the different social media channels that you frequent. Postcards would be another one, right? We've got a tool called Brivity Marketer that does kind of postcard marketing for your listings. 59 cents a postcard. That's including postage and postcard and all the way into their USPS first class mail. There's some different sizes that get more expensive, but a Brivity virtual assistant could manage that process of making sure that just listed or just sold postcard got out for you. Update showing feedback for sellers. It's just another thing that, look, in these crazy markets right now, I don't know how much showing feedback we're having to give to our sellers, because if we price a property right, that property is selling this weekend, at least in many of our markets, right? So, but in normal markets, right, when a house is on the market for a couple weeks or a month or even 2 or 3 months, right, and we get showing coming back through there, we're going to take that showing feedback in whatever kind of form that takes, and we're going to bring it in, and the virtual assistant is going to make sure that that gets entered into our transaction so that our clients, ultimately, if we want them to, we don't have to show them every piece of feedback we take in, but if we want them to, Brivity has a mechanism through which you can share that showing feedback on a daily or weekly basis with your clients. And so in our world, the virtual assistants are the one that are tapped into showing time in many of our markets. And it's not an automatic connection. Brivity doesn't have that automatic feed from showing time, but our virtual assistants have the ability to log in there, grab the showing feedback from any of our listings, and it's just part of their routine, right? We create a lot of systems and models that give our virtual assistants a routine where they can go in and do these. These are not necessarily directly income producing activities, right? This idea of like making sure that our clients get all the showing feedback or making sure our clients know where their home is marketed. It's not like a direct income producing activity, but what it leads to, at least in our world, is clients that think, holy cow, the Ben Kinney team does a lot to get our house sold. And a lot of what we're doing and showing to them is the activity and the efforts of our virtual assistants. And look, in December of 2020, at least here in Washington State, our hub, we can't do open houses right now, right? We are shut down on that. We still do have some teams, Texas, they can still do them. I think Florida, they're still able to host open houses. So our virtual assistants will support the marketing and the execution of open houses, right? They'll make sure that, you know, all of the places where we might need to go in and update that there's an open house happening in the MLS and Zillow and these different spots, right? They'll make sure that that stuff is all in order. They'll make sure that flyers are printed if the agent's going to be heading out there on Saturday. We have a whole list of things. And again, this is an auto plan that we use inside of Brivity. And if you're a Brivity client, we'd be more than happy to share with you our open house marketing plan that we use that our virtual assistants go in and kind of execute against. Right? These are things that if you host open houses, you're either not doing everything you could do, right? Or you're doing it all, but it takes a lot of time to host even one open house. We've created a kind of a formula where we plug virtual assistants in because this is a massive part of Ben's business, right? Like when you, as a new agent that comes into our world, or even as an agent that's kind of been around for a little while, but you haven't hit certain productivity numbers, we're asking that they do 2 open houses every single week. And when you think about a team like we have here in Bellingham, and right now we've only got, 20 listings or whatever, but we got probably at this point 10 agents in Bellingham that are still on the 2 open houses a week. Now we can't do them right now, right? But in a normal week, that'd mean we're going to have 20 open houses this weekend, right? And how do you market and execute on all of those without leaving all of the onus on the individual agents who are going out and doing these things? We use virtual assistants to support that process. This is actually one of my favorite kind of leverage points of a virtual assistant. So it's not uncommon, especially if you're doing seller leads. If you've ever done seller leads in your life, the tactic or the strategy for generating seller leads is a very common across the industry, which is essentially we offer sellers a home valuation estimate on their home, right? And the forms that they fill out or the ads they hit on the internet basically give them this page they land on where they give us their address. They just type their address in. The second step of one of those then asks for their name, email, and phone number before we give them the actual estimate. At least in every market around the country, at least 50% of the people that come in and give us their address. So people are like, I'm curious what my house is worth. Here's my address. On that second page, they will abandon. They'll go, oh, wait, no, you're not getting my name, phone number, and email, and they'll abandon. And so we end up with a bunch of leads in our world where all we know is somebody who's interested in the value of this address. We don't necessarily know their name or their email or their phone number yet. So we will use Brivity virtual assistants. Guys, my mom is a real estate agent. She's got a VA. Her name's Paula. And Paula, every single morning, Paula will come in. And one of the steps in Paula's day is to look at our leads that came in yesterday, all of our leads, right? And wherever we have holes or missing information, Paula's going to go use a tool. We use Ben Verified. There's Spokio, there's White Pages, there's We use benverified.com, and Paula will go in and she will find all that missing information if she can. And Ben Verified is highly effective. So people will leave an address sometimes, come in and say, I'm curious what my house is worth, abandon, not give us their name, email, and phone number, and we'll get a lead that just has an address. Well, Paula will go in, use Ben Verified, look that address up, find their name, so she'll enter it into the database. So now we have a complete lead. And we have a script around how we call somebody who didn't give us their name, but we tracked it down. We have an apology script that we use. We can freely share that with you guys. This is a big deal. It's a really big deal if you have any kind of seller leads in your world. But it's a big deal in general. Quickly, so we have another application where you can get leads via text every time you take a listing. So we put riders out that have a text code that people can text in. When we get leads of that nature, all we have is a cell phone number. We got a lead of somebody that was standing out in front of our listing and was curious what it was worth or wanted to see the photos of the inside, so they texted our listing, but all we get is a cell phone. So in my mom's world, Paula, her VA, will go in every morning if we had quickly leads from yesterday, and she'll look those phone numbers up and see if we can find a name. This is kind of an extension of that last thing. I spend a lot of time in real estate agent databases. It's a big part of my job. I do it for Ben Kinney. He's got 40 expansion teams. Our other place partners in the Experience Network, Chris Suarez's group, they've got 28 pretty large teams around the country. So every single month, I'm in those 65 accounts, looking through them, helping them kind of spot opportunities. And then I do it for a lot of Brivity clients as well. And one of the things that I'm just, in some ways amazed at, but it's not that amazing, because when you realize how complex your guys' job is and you're on the go all the time, and a lot of times it's hard if you don't have leverage to kind of slow down and build the business, right? You're constantly working in the business, and you're basically working at your job, which is like closing transactions so you get paid. I can't tell you guys how often I go into a database, and you can go into your own database and see, how often I go in there and just in their past clients in their sphere, there are massive holes all through these databases, right? I'll go into some people and their past clients, half of them won't have their address in the database, right? I'll go in on past clients and many of them won't have emails and phone numbers. And when I'm in an account with somebody, I'll say to them, hey, I know this person's phone number or this person's email. You just don't have it in the database, right? They're like, oh, yeah, no, it's in my phone. It's in my email. Yeah, you're right? Or addresses is another one. If we don't have, the value of your business, okay, any one of you guys that's on this call today, the value of your business is Amy, April, Bob, Catherine. The value of your business is in the data in your database. It is your database. Like when one day Amy's she's gonna be ready. She's moving to Florida. She's gonna sell the business. What you're selling is the database. And so if we don't have, like, our past clients, a great example in your sphere, 70% of the business in our industry comes from past clients or referrals from past clients. But a lot of you guys don't even have like a full kind of slate of information about the people you've actually worked with and the people you know. So we constantly have our virtual assistants going in and trying to fill these holes in the database, not just on new leads, right? And they're doing plenty of that on new leads like we saw here, but they're trying to fill those holes on our past clients. So if we have past clients, we're in our database, we say, I don't have an address, the VA will go in there and reach out and say, hey, Jim, this is Paula, Gail's assistant, and I'm just reaching out because we were cleaning some things up, and I don't think I have your guys' best address right now. Would you mind firing that over so that Gail can have that on file? Constantly, every day, Paula spends 15 or 30 minutes going in and just spot checking that database. And look, at this point, Gail's database is real clean, right? Everybody's got an address, all our sphere, all our past clients. We got all their emails. We got their best phone numbers, right? But we're constantly kind of maintaining that database. And you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that's been in more real estate databases than I have in the last 19 years. This is a very, very common problem. And again, I get it. You guys are running 1,000,000 miles an hour and we close a client and we just kind of, maybe their name got in the database, maybe it didn't. You can use a virtual assistant to really kind of fill those holes. And those filled holes become the value of your business. At the end of the day, when you're all said and done and you're going to sell your business and retire to the beach, I'm assuming everybody retires to the beach. Maybe that's just me. Maybe you're going to retire to the mountains and ski or whatever you're going to do, right? We have to have something. We have to have that data in the database. All right. If you run a team, one of the most challenging and potentially most rewarding aspects of running a team is helping your agents be accountable, but also spot opportunities. So we have, in our world, many of our teams leverage a VA to help agents make sure that we're staying accountable, that we're adhering to the standards of the team. I'll give you a great example of one of our standards that VAs spend a lot of time kind of helping our agents make sure they hit. And if you guys have ever been on one of our lunch and learns or Brivity happy hours with me, at some point you've heard me talk about, last visits to the website and last viewers on our market reports. When we have consumers, potential prospects or leads, right? Ultimately like potential clients in our database that are showing activity in the database that are signs of becoming a buyer or seller, we got to jump on those things. And some of our agents, they're in there every day, they're spotting these opportunities. Some of our agents, especially when they get busy, right? When they got a bunch of clients they're working with, they get out and they don't get into the database today. Our VAs are going to come in and just remind them, right? Some of our teams use a Slack channel for that. Some of them just text back and forth, right? Some of them use Brivity and actually set reminders for the agent, priority one reminders to follow up with certain leads that might have been getting missed. We are constantly trying to remind the agents, get back in here. There's another opportunity in here. If you call this person today, maybe you can catch them, right? We're constantly holding our agents accountable to the standards. Now, you have to have standards. One of our standards is if we have visitors that we can see that have been on our website, we need to have communication with them, attempted communication in the last 7 days, or a reminder into the future. Because we might have a lead that we talked to, a month ago, but they said, hey, we're not buying for sure, Bob, until after the new year, right? And so I've got to remind, as long as I have a reminder set out in January, let's say January 4th, which is the first Monday coming back from the new year, right? That's okay that I haven't talked to that person in 30 days. But when one of our virtual assistants comes in and sees leads that are outside the standard, so maybe we see a lead that the last communication attempt we had with them was a month ago, but they've been on our website today and yesterday and the day before that, right? And they don't have a reminder set to follow up with them in the future. The VA is going to come in and they're going to say, hey, James, don't forget that we need to call or text this lead right here. They've been on the website looking at properties. There's a lot of power in having an extra set of eyes in your business, trained eyes, right, that know where to go and spot opportunities in your database. I have yet, and look, we run a really, really high-performing team in Ben Kinney's world. But every single one of our different operations around the country, every single month we go in there and we help them spot opportunities, right? The teams that have virtual assistants who are doing this on a daily basis, they don't get as much out of my calls with them because the VAs are doing a lot of what I do with the teams that don't have somebody in that leverage point. So this actually leads to like income producing opportunities for you and your agents, right? This goes beyond just kind of, they're doing something that I don't want to do. Everybody should be doing this, especially if you run a team. You should be kind of holding them to the standards and checking to make sure that we're getting every opportunity. All right, and this is another really big one. When we start working with a brand new Ben Kinney team, okay, that a lot of they had their own team and they're partnering with Ben to become an expansion partner in his world. It's the same thing when we bring a new Brivity client on board. If I work with them, what we are looking to achieve as fast as possible, and I'm talking in days, right? In 2 or 3 days, we want to get 20% of that database set up with a listing alert. So it's going to be buyers, right? Buyer leads, buyer prospects, old stuff we've got in this database. 20% of it needs to be on a listing alert, getting new properties being sent to them. And 20% of the database needs to be on a market report. So a market report is going to send them actives, pendings, and sold properties in the last 30 days, kind of around their house. Show them what's going on in that market where they live. Okay, help them make a decision on, are they ready to sell or not, right? They can see what their neighbors' houses are selling for, right? Stop them from going to Zillow, stop them from leaking out of our database to some other place, stop them from clicking on those forms that say, hey, I want to know what your house is worth, right? So 20% of the database on a listing alert, 20% on a market report. We have yet, in probably the last 25 teams I've brought on that are Ben Kinney teams, and I don't know how many Brivity teams, I've yet to find a team where we couldn't get to those numbers. So if you have 4,000 people in your database, 800 of them need to be on a listing alert and 800 of them need to be on a market report. We have a strategy around using so market reports generally, most people think to add those to people I have an address for. And we've got a tool in Brivity where you can add 50 market reports at a time if you've got their email and their physical address. But we use another strategy. Let me show it to you actually, because I think this is James, are you still seeing my screen there, partner? You see me go into the database here? All right, James, thanks for playing along, my friend. James is scrolling on Facebook right now. You're busted, James. I don't call him out on these things very often or ask for his help, but can somebody just let me know? There it is, James. Okay, thank you. I see you're chatting with me now, not talking. Okay. I want to come in here and show you like the activity in Gail's account. So this is my mom, but she's the Ben Kinney expansion partner in Olympia, Washington. And we see in here a bunch of people that are like kind of looking at her market reports, right? And we can see Thomas here, this old valuations lead, and we send him our market report. And gosh, for a whole year, almost a year, we were sending him this thing. He never looked at it. And then he started looking at it. And then, man, he took a whole nother year off where he didn't look at this thing at all. But in the last 4 or 5 months, every time it goes out to him, he looks at it. And I'll show you really quick, if you're not a Brivity customer, what one of these market reports kind of looks like, right? So this guy lives right here at this address. So we're just sending him the information about what's selling around his house. And we can see that, you know, if they're priced right in our area, properties are flying off the market, often for over the asking price, right? But that particular one on Thomas, we have his address. And so we're sending him information around his house. And you should, right? And so every contact in this database where we have an email and a physical address for them, they're getting a market report. All our past clients, but sometimes we can't send them to our past clients if you guys don't have their address and their email in there, which is another thing our VA can go out and do for us, right? But there's another strategy here with market reports that is really phenomenal. It's been, in many ways, a game changer for us. Look at all these folks right here. So what we see on this page is in the last 9 days, she had 50 consumers who have hit her market reports. You know, this person was there 3 hours ago, and the person at the bottom was there 9 days ago. All these people that have addresses, they're looking at market reports around their house, right? They're seeing what their neighbors are selling for. But all these people that do not have addresses in here, what they are doing is they are looking at a market report for just an area that they're thinking about buying. So we have a listing alert on Ronald Sorensen that's sending him listings in, you know, Olympia. Looks like it's $70,000 or something. Let's use a better example. John Lowry, we're sending him listings, you know, somewhere, probably in Tacoma, right? In some price range. So every day he's getting listings from us. But you know what's crazy? This guy stopped looking at our listing alerts a year ago. He hasn't been back to our website. He's been looking on Redfin for the last year. He found a cool app that he likes to use, or he's been looking somewhere else, right? So most teams, most agents, this lead is dead and gone, right? Very rare if you have any size database that you go back and try to kind of hit these leads that they haven't shown activity in a year. But what Gail's team does is they get a market report set up on this same person, kind of sending John the market information for Tacoma in most likely the price range that he was looking at houses. So he's getting a market report in Tacoma between 300 and 400,000. And we can see Remember, he hadn't been on our website in a whole year. Well, look how many opportunities Gail's team has had because, 6 months ago, they thought, you know what? We should start sending market reports about the area they'd like to buy so they can see the activity that's happening where they'd like to live. This strategy right here, I want just on this page, let's just how many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There's 16 people on this page that we are sending a market report to that most people are not. Now, these market reports have to be individually set up, right? We got to go in and analyze what listing alert are we sending this guy or where has he been looking at properties? And then we set up kind of a corresponding or a matching or mirroring market report. They have 16 opportunities today to go reach out to consumers, have a good conversation with somebody, right? Because that person's been getting information. And like we saw with, I forget which lead it was John, right? John Lowry. They're not just hitting these things once, right? They like these market reports. We send it every 2 weeks. Every time we send it, this guy's been looking at it, right? It's just an opportunity for us to call John, have a great conversation with him. And at the end of the day, that's an income producing activity, right? Making the call to this lead to try to see, where he's at, what he's up to, what he thinks about what's going on in the market in Tacoma. That's an income producing activity. Was setting the market report up an income producing activity? I don't know, but here's what I do know. It led to one, right? It led to an opportunity for us. And this can be done by a virtual assistant, right? They're trained on how to do this, right? Gail's VA, now she might have had to give them a little bit of guidance like to her particular market, right? She might have said, look, if they're looking, at homes around 300,000, let's go up or down, 10% or maybe 20% in that price range. If they're looking at homes up at $1 million, let's just go up or down 10%, right? We'll do 900 to 1.1. But if they're down at 300,000, 10% wouldn't be enough, right? We need to go 20. So Gail kind of give them the nuance of doing these things, but they're trained on how to go set up a market report for somebody, who's looking at properties in Tacoma. Gail just has to help with the nuance of it. This, as probably of all the things on here, the one that most directly leads to income producing opportunities for our teams is this one right here. Right? It's setting in place those tools that Brivity gives you so that you get results in the database that you can then go and take action against. Patty, yeah. Patty asked, can the Brivity VAs reach out and talk to the leads being nurtured? One of the options, we've got this little, you guys can kind of look at, by the way, Patty, I'll answer your question in just a second. The answer is yes, but I'll give you a little bit of context in a second. If you're currently like managing your transactions with a transaction coordinator, right? Like a paid one, maybe your office offers this or, over time, especially as you start to build a big business, the challenge is, when do you make that transition? James, do me a favor. Go and dig up. We did an interview recently on Happy Hour or Lunch and Learns with Olivia and Jolene and Jacqueline and Gail, a bunch of the expansion partners, and even the ops people from Ben Kinney's, a couple of Ben Kinney's teams. And if you're really curious about, when you make that transition, when's the right time, we have an extensive discussion in that video around kind of when's the right time. How do you go about doing it? How do you figure out, like, one of the things that Jolene talked about, I thought was great is, and we do this in our own world. Ben Kinney has all of us do this once a year. We will go in and we will analyze for a whole week what we do during our day in 15-minute increments. And we actually, we do this time tracking exercise where we figure out where are we spending our time. And, there's lots of things that you do, right? Where you do them 12 times a week, right? Where it takes you 10 minutes each time you do it, that could have been being done by somebody else easily. But when you're only doing them 10 minutes at a time, and it's never like you feel like you're spending an hour on these things, but when you actually time track over a whole week, and we literally have these forms, and in the video, I think we even shared the link to the forms, but where we time track. you can actually find those forms, I think, on winmakegive.com. But anyway, we just time track for a whole week. And then what Jolene said is that exercise then led her to understand, what things do I do all the time in any given week that could be leveraged off, right? And she said, as you explore those things, you start to see things that you do that you don't like doing, right? What you actually realize is, like, I only did that thing for a half hour this week. I probably should have spent 2 hours doing that thing, but I don't like doing it. So I only did it, I kind of did a little bit of it. No. Yeah. So these are really great questions, Linda. So why Brivity VAs? Let's talk about, so she said, can we get them to call? Yes, we can get virtual assistants. So when you go in, here's how the process works. And maybe I'll bring, hey, Bryce, you want to come on here with me, buddy? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sure.
Bryce. Look at this handsome gentleman. Okay. So guys, Bryce runs the US operations for our virtual assistants. We've got another gentleman, Greg Hayes, who runs the kind of the sourcing side of things in the Philippines. Greg ran a huge virtual assistant firm with, I don't know, like 5,000 virtual assistants he managed at some point. But Bryce, how many do we have today? A couple, 300 or something?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're managing we're providing virtual assistants to about 300, mostly Brivity clients. You don't have to be a Brivity client to get a Brivity VA. We have them for people that are running other systems, but our VAs are trained in Brivity. So they take, Bryce, explain the training process that we take a virtual assistant through before we actually place them with an agent.
Yeah, of course. So we, it's really important to Ben to get VAs trained in Brivity for our Brivity customers right out of the gate. So the first thing we did was build like a pretty in-depth training program the last 2 weeks. I've nicknamed it Brivity Bootcamp because my VAs can't get placed with a client unless they graduate. They get evaluated like 2 separate times. And in those 2 weeks, they learn all of the core functions within Brivity. And what I mean by core is all of these things that you're talking about: database management, listeners, market reports, auto plans. They learn all of those things so that when they come out of that training program, the learning curve of onboarding a VA in Brivity is shortened dramatically. They're not going to be able to run your business in Brivity. They're not licensed U.S. real estate agents who just know what you need. But if you can show them what you want implemented in your team, show them what you want, they can do all the legwork in there to go and accomplish that for you. In addition, they've got layers above that, right? They got training, but then they have a success coach that is above them that's been proven to be more knowledgeable in Brivity than them, right? And then on top of that, they are Brivity, right? They've got a direct connection to our Brivity support team, our Brivity training team, myself, Greg, Bob. And so if they're stumped in Brivity, they're directed not to reach out to the client, they're directed to reach out to me, to us. And so that we can show you and your team and through the VA how to be doing those tasks.
So Linda asked a question that basically said, like, hey, what if I have a transaction coordinator and I'm totally good with her, but I'd like to bring a VA in for some of these other things that you talked about that I know I should be doing, but I'm not. Absolutely, yeah. Linda. Like, Bryce, they could work alongside our transaction coordinator. They could fill in with that TC maybe if they needed to. But Linda, if you wanted to have them just work on some specific aspect of the business and leave the transaction coordination to the person that does it for you now, absolutely. Like all day long, you could do that. The process of kind of hiring a VA, let's talk about that for a minute, Bryce, because what they're going to do is you guys are going to come to us, Linda, and you're going to say, here's how I envision kind of leveraging a virtual assistant in my world, right? And you're going to have a consultation. So you might even do it with Bryce, right? We've got a couple people on our team that you could potentially do that with, but it could be Bryce. And we're going to talk to you about kind of what do you need a VA for, right? And then we're going to go out and we're going to we're going to go find you a skill set that matches what you need. So somebody earlier asked about calling my leads. Can they call my leads? Yes, we could go find you an ISA style virtual assistant, right? With, we give them disc profiles and we look at their past jobs, right? And we're going to find you somebody that's capable of getting on the phone, right? That is going to be a different skill set than somebody that you might want to bring in to be like a transaction coordinator. So if you were to come to us and say, look, I want a VA that's going to get on the phones, they're going to be a transaction coordinator, they're going to you might not get the best fit that instead of if you had somebody who said, look, it's a very specific role, right, Bryce? Like they're going to be calling my leads. And that's all they're going to be doing. We'll go find somebody that's skilled in that. Do you have anything any flavor to add to this idea, finding the right VA?
That doesn't sound mind-blowing when we talk about it, right, Bob? But our experience, and I think you might have had the same experience because you were using VAs in Brivity, but basically the majority of companies out there, they'll get a VA to call you, they'll say they listen, but really what they have is a pool of maybe 10 or 15 available candidates right now. And then they just like shotgun blast those to you and make you filter through them and vet them and choose them yourself. That's not how we decided to do this, right? We want to provide even more leverage. And so we'll vet those 10 or 18 people for you and pull out the top 1 or 2, right? Like, and it's all custom curated. So if you say you need the following things, right, then we're going to go and find that. You're not going to get random. You're not going to say I need an EA and a TC and then find someone who doesn't speak in English who is a marketing professional, right? Like we are very specific about who we bring on. You'll never get a green VA. You'll never get a green VA who's new to real estate, for example, like real estate experienced only. And we have minimum requirements for the experience that they have for each role. We don't hire, probably 90% of the people that we interview. Like we're looking for the top 10 or 20% of VAs in the industry to put in front of the clients. A much different experience.
And then Linda, you get to, so let's say they you say, look, this is the role, and we go and curate from our prospects and say, Linda, here, we think these 2 people would be really great candidates for you. You get to actually sit down, Linda, on a Zoom and you interview them. And you could even come back. It's very rare, by the way, that this happens, but you could come back to Bryce and say, Bryce, I interviewed both those people. And, I had mentioned to you that Excel was really important to me. And I asked them what I thought were some pretty basic Excel questions, and neither one of them seemed to get and we'll go back and find you somebody else, right? Like you're not stuck with here, we give you 2. Again, it's very rare that happens because our team, Greg and the people that source on that side are experienced in doing this and have done it at a really high level for, Fortune 500 companies. So it's the whole process. And then Bryce, I hear about all of the, and it's been very rare. I think 3 times maybe in the year that we've been doing this, it didn't work out for somebody. And, we have a pretty extensive kind of post-mortem on that. And I think in almost every one of those 3 cases, the person ended up kind of admitting I didn't guide the VA at all. I kind of expected them to come into my business and they were going to kind of know what to do. And look, they know what to do on the Brivity side. And many of these people have experience in real estate, but they don't know your business. So, there is a little bit of a team. It's a team, right? You're like hiring somebody to join your team. They're experienced. They have real estate experience even. They've got VA experience. They've got Brivity training. But it's still a partnership where you're going to help them be successful on your team, just like you would if you had somebody that you hired, that sat physically next to you in an office or on a Zoom. Look, these days, a lot of us are working virtually with our teams anyway. All right, so I kind of led with this slide, but here's some of the different roles that people can play. And look, like ISA guys, that phone role, a lot of times that's kind of a dedicated role. Some of these other things, like maybe a marketing manager and an admin, right? We could find somebody to kind of play both of those roles because those skill sets are very similar. Although a marketing manager, we might want to have a little bit more design chops with or something like that, right? But these are some of the different kind of uses or kind of really dedicated VAs that we have. But look, it's not one size fits all. Like you're going to have a consultation with Bryce. You're going to tell us what you hope to be able to leverage that VA to help you with. And then we're going to go out and find somebody that has a skill set that matches that deal. So there's so we've got project VAs where you can just get a VA to come do something you need done. A great example would be listing alerts and market reports, Bryce. And we do these all the time, right? Where we are allowing people to, or they're coming to us saying, hey, I got 900 listing alerts that I need to get set up. And we'll go out and say, we think that's going to take about this long. And they can get a project-based VA to go out and kind of execute those things for them. We've got those in chunks of 15 hours or 35 hours. Then we've got part-time and full-time VAs, okay? You can get a part-time at 20 hours a week. And if you do that, what happens is you end up sharing that virtual assistant with another real estate agent, right? If you have a full-time VA, that VA works for you 40 hours a week. A couple of the real common questions that come out of this, how do I know my VA is like working, Bryce? I think that's some people have probably dealt with a VA before where they've, if you've had a VA before and you've like said something to them at noon and they answer at 3 o'clock and you're like, what were they doing for like, how do we deal with that?
Yeah, so every VA that joins our organization agrees to use a system that will track their screen for accountability purposes. So every 6 or 9 minutes, it'll actually take us a little quick screenshot of what they're doing. It shows how many times they move their mouse and actually click their keyboard every single, in that same time frame. And they agree to that up front, right? Like we ask for a lot of accountability from our VAs. Every client can get into that system and see the screen, see if they're idle, see how many times they're actually moving their mouse and if they're actually working, right? And if that's not intrusive to the VAs, they say, absolutely, I'll take that. And we compensate our VAs much greater than the industry average because of that. We're giving them full healthcare benefits, which is a rarity in the Philippines, right? We compensate them like over double what the industry average wages are. So in exchange for accountability, we're going to reward them and give them much more. And the VAs love that.
And listen, I've had a virtual assistant personally. His name is Noel. He's been with me for 5 years. At this point, this kid's like my family. His dad passed away recently. He gets me choked up, but I often tell people, because for me initially, one of the concerns was like, I'm going to have this person that I can have do things for me, but can they communicate on my behalf? And I'll tell you guys right now, Noel, he writes better written English than I do. Like he actually writes proper written English, Bryce, and I like say y'all and use weirdness when I type and smiley faces and probably too many exclamation points, right? I don't have any problem. In fact, Noel runs the support division of our Active Rain website, and we still have a pretty healthy community on Active Rain 12 years or 14 years after we launched it, however long it's been now, 14 years. And he runs the support there. He fields emails for me. He responds as me. Like, I've given this guy kind of the keys to my kingdom, and I trust him 100%. I wouldn't have any problem putting him on the phone with any client that we have. He emails on my behalf. And he is not an anomaly. For a while I thought maybe this guy's an anomaly, but guys, we have virtual assistants that help us in Brivity. Ben Kinney's got some that have been with him for, I think Era, his longest, has been around for 10 years. She's been with Ben. These people become a part of, at least for me, Noel's become a part of my family. And he's just a good worker, right? Like he's a hard worker, and we give him raises and we gave him a Christmas bonus. And it's been really game changing. We do the Win, Make, Give podcast, Bryce, and I was given an assignment this week by Ben Kinney, and Noel did the assignment for me. Like, that's how much I'm going to turn around and take what he gave me, and I'm going to give it to Ben and say, hey, here's my assignment. And he knows, like Ben knows that I leverage, a smart guy like Noel every now and then. But
if Ben knew how many VAs we leverage to run our VA program, then maybe that'd be a surprise too. I mean, my right-hand person, right? I'm hiring another VA to run our entire launch and account management process. Yeah, it's
so
great.
You guys, if you would like to connect with Bryce or one of the amazing folks on our team about a Brivity virtual assistant, what I want you to do right now is pull out your cell phone and text the word VA to 59559. So you're just who are you sending the message to? 59559. And the body of that message is going to be this VA. So text VA to 59559. What we'll do is we'll send you back a link to Bryce's calendar, and you can hop on there at a time that's convenient for you. You can ask any questions we didn't get a chance to answer today. And then, if you're ready, like that could become your consultation where Bryce, we start the process of exploring with you, how could you best leverage a virtual assistant in your world? What would that look like? What kind of skills are we hoping that person has? And we go out and we'll find that person for you. And 2021, maybe 2021 is the year where you're really focused on how do I increase the dollars per hour that I'm earning in my business. And again, guys, we'll circle it all the way around. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can work more hours in 2021, or you can become more efficient, and you can get leverage. And a virtual assistant is going to allow you the leverage to get more efficient. And so you got two options: work more or find leverage. And
I like that.
Bryce, thanks for dropping in here and kind of helping me wrap this thing up. You guys text VA to 59559 if you're curious. You can always go to brivityva.com as well and kind of check around. We've got plenty of references that we could give you of agents that have really integrated a virtual assistant to massive results in many cases. So appreciate you guys spending the last hour with me. He's Bryce, and James has been in the background answering questions. Mikey and Samantha help you guys find these things. So thank you to them. My name's Bob Stewart. Have an awesome rest of your week, and Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope you have an amazing holiday with your families. Get a chance to hug somebody, Bryce, outside of your immediate home. I mean, I know we're not gonna do that, but I'm going to throw a mask on and hug somebody that doesn't live with me, Bryce. I hope you guys get a chance to do the same thing. We'll talk to you guys later. Appreciate it, Bryce.